I think overall, most people would agree that for a country as rich as the United States, there shouldn't be any homelessness. But the fact of the matter, it is growing, and it's worse than it's ever been before. What probably precipitated it more in Madison as well as in Wisconsin is when there was a big movement back in the 70s to really look at our mental health institutions, and they were not performing well. But they threw the baby out with the bathwater. Instead of fixing the problem and providing the kind of mental health services in parity with health services, they basically eliminated the facilities and let people roam the streets. And when people are doing that without the kind of support that creates the homelessness that we have. You combine that then with the Vietnam War, with the Middle East War, veterans coming back with post-traumatic stress disorder, where we kind of throw them under the bus and don't think anything of it. We have a serious homeless crisis throughout the United States.
In 2020, a small amount of tents began building at Rydell Park on Madison's far east side. Over the course of a year, this grew into a population of nearly 200 people with at least 150 tents, several RVs. You had cars placed in the middle of the woods in this residential park.
Well, that was another classic case of if that was you or I or anybody else that was using Randall Park as an encampment, we would have been fined and ticketed and removed. But for whatever reason, the mayor, in essence, told the police not to do anything, thinking that the problem would go away. Again, this mentality is sweeping underneath the rug. The neighborhood was an uproar. I mean, there was the police calls out there constantly. There was drug transactions going on. There was beatings going on. People didn't feel safe. So she's created that problem. And then she's trying to take credit for solving it. But there was about close to 200 people that were out there.
The city of Madison felt that they needed a quick solution to this issue and took a plot of land, 1.8 acres of land, in the industrial park of Madison, far away from the public. They spent millions of dollars putting together this camp. The residents there don't have a kitchen. They don't have the things they need. There are many problems going on, lots of violence, a lack of supervision, graffiti, and recently a member of this encampment burnt their shed to the ground.
The fire department was called to the Dairy Drive encampment shortly after 1 o'clock this afternoon.
Well, I think it's an incredible success. We are housing people who were formerly homeless, and we have a really good rate of turning people from Dairy Drive out into more stable housing situations in the community.
Great success? I don't know where she gets her information. And all I know is from talking to some of the alders who rushed to judgment on the decision, but they trusted the mayor, said the biggest criteria was make sure we have no neighbors to complain.
The fire began around 1:20 this afternoon at the shelter on Dairy Drive. A pallet shelter at the shelter on Dairy Drive burned to the ground Tuesday afternoon.
Are you currently filming?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
please don't.
well, this is taxpayer funded,
Sure.
and it's a public space.
Yeah.
So I will film. I mean, I think a lot of citizens are concerned with stories like the part of the facility being burnt to the ground recently.
Can I get your phone number or your email address?
We were dispatched for a fire, and officers responded to the scene.
Officials later determined the fire was arson.
We do have a known suspect who was a resident here.
Is there 24-hour supervision here? Because with the graffiti and the burning shed and so forth, I mean, I think people in the community are kind of wondering if there's supervision going on.
Yeah, I'll encourage you to talk to Brenda about that.
But so you can't answer directly?
I'm not interested in answering.
Please.
I'm not interested in answering.
Well, you don't put homeless people in an industrial park when it's a food desert. And the criteria should have been is where are the social services, where can they have access to food, where is it safe, and where you're not going to deal with drugs. And there's been a number of police calls out there. And then even worse yet, they have an exit gate that was chained up. Had that fire spread, God only knows what would have happened. And then the facility that they use to use the bathroom is inadequate for the number of people there. So there really needs to be an audit, an investigation of what's going on, and we need to get back down to the real issue. How do we combine mental health facilities and support with homelessness facilities?
Here in the industrial park on Madison's east side, not too far from Stoughton Road and the Beltline. Now, since its opening, there have been physical altercations, including someone recently being stabbed.
Calls here have increased. Different things, you know, from thefts to criminal damage to property. We had a stabbing one time.
And in Madison, I think the biggest challenge that I see is this rush to judgment without transparency, without looking at the cost and the humane treatment of the homelessness, to build an encampment in the middle of an industrial park, which is basically a food desert, surrounded by a fence and security, during the middle of winter where we hit chill factors of 30 below, where all these little huts, which I believe are 8 by 8 feet, roughly 6,400 or 64 square feet, and they have to walk 25 to 50 yards to the bathroom. That's inhumane.
Now, this is the facility, and they are basically little sheds that do have electricity. No running water or anything in the actual shed.
So the city of Madison purchased these sheds from a company called Pallet, and with shipping costs, it came to over $15,000 per unit. And insulation has been an issue, and you can actually see where residents of this encampment had to put blankets in the doorway to keep the heat in. Yet, for less money, they could have actually purchased campers from Jayco, which would have included a kitchenette, a bathroom with a shower, would have actually been more spacious, and more importantly, these would have been mobile in case they need to move the encampment at some point.
The big main center building, that's the bathroom. Now, just the other day, they were trying to evict somebody from this facility, and they burnt it to the ground, right across the street from the fire station. It doesn't seem to be much supervision. As you can see inside the facility, there's a lot of spray paint along the back wall of the facility.
The encampment that almost looks like a kind of a bad refugee camp is the best way to explain it, on the borders of Mafraq and Syria, where you have these little huts, and they're poorly constructed. They're flammable, as we know. And so when I see the rush to judgment that the mayor made, she was part of the problem. Now, let me just say this about the mayor. She's a very intelligent person, but she's sometimes too intelligent for her own good, because it's the right way and the wrong way, and it's her way. And she was criticizing Soglin for that. But I will say this about Soglin: at least he had operational common sense. And there's no way in hell that under Paul Soglin or under Dave Cheslevich or any of the previous mayors would they have allowed this encampment to go through. And if people haven't seen it, they need to see it, because it is just gut-wrenching to see what we've done.
I feel we don't even have a kitchen and all our food thrown in, so that's all things really.
Doesn't even have a kitchen in it?
We have no kitchen, no central kitchen.
They could have saved a tremendous amount of money during the pandemic, when most of the hotel vacancies were 90% vacant, had spent that money giving people a decent room with a bathroom, with heat, with breakfast in the morning, and then provide services, mental health services, to work with the staff. But instead, we built these huts that, quite frankly, violate both public health as well as our building codes. And that fire went up, and thank goodness nobody was killed. But had that individual who burned down his own hut had burned down the other huts, people would have died.
We did reach out to Mayor Satya Rhodes Conway and the District 16 Alder for a comment and have not heard back.
Satya,
Hang out for a little bit. Yeah.
what are your thoughts on the fire at the Dairyland encampment?
I think it's really unfortunate, and we're working working with a very vulnerable population, but I think that the folks out there learn from the situation and will be taking steps to make sure that something like that never happens again.
But like I said before, when you look at the operational cost, and the price of the land and the direct and indirect cost, we could have bought a hotel complex that would house more than 30 people, improve it, renovate it, work with public health and social services, and provide it in a humane fashion. What that was done on Dairy Drive should be an example of what never to do with the homelessness, and the mayor should be ashamed of herself.
Do you think there was a lack of supervision?
No, I don't think so. I think that, again, it's a very vulnerable population, and the folks that are working out there are doing their best in a tough situation. But overall, I think it's an incredible success.